Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch my speech and to leave me any feedbacks, comments, and concerns and questions. Anything is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. I would like to talk about childhood upbringing. I don't think that a lot of people realize how much your childhood upbringing affects your adult life. I think that is a very, very serious topic. Um, People go on with their lives and they live their lives and they have these heartaches and these issues that they deal with, and they never really realize what it is coming, where it's coming from, or why that may be the case. And so sometimes they go see a therapist, or sometimes they just sit down and meditate and think to themselves and realize that there's things that they went through in their childhood that they just dragged on into their adult life, and it was just something that was in their subconscious and the environment that they were in, and we just don't realize that enough. So I think that it's very, very important to discuss something like that. um, Kids are born into a world, and you have parents that bring up their kids out of love, and then you have parents that bring up their kids out of, I would say, sacrifice or survival. That's what I would say, survival. The kid that's brought out of love, that brought out of love, but the kid that is brought up with love, like whenever they do something and they get the, oh my God, you did so great, good job, and you get rewarded, you get to do great things, like your parents take you to Disney World and you have great birthday parties, and you grow into this, from this little baby into this lovely person, and you were brought from love. And then you have people that were brought with sacrifice, that were brought up with a lot of negativity. It was never, they didn't have enough confidence, lots of insecurity things were put on them, and they were just like not enough love, not enough emotional connections. So they're a little bit different. So let's talk about it a little. Okay, baby is born. Every time they crawl, every time they do something, they get rewarded, or whatever, just a happy, good job. There's a lot of love, there's a lot of emotional connection with their parents. They grow up and they start going to school. They're nice to other people. They're usually the nicer kids, not necessarily bullies. They're sweet. They sometimes make friends easy. Maybe sometimes they don't, but most of the time they usually make friends pretty easily, and they're just brought up that way. And if they saw love in their household as they were growing up, and if their parents were very, very affectionate towards one another, maybe whenever even if they didn't see their parents argue, or if they did see their parents argue, whatever, somebody would apologize and they would see somebody make an effort. So as they get older, they mimic that with their relationships. As they get into relationships and they start talking about marriage and stuff, then they mimic what they see. Like for girls, they want a man like their father, like some of the traits that their father had, because that's what they saw. And then you have a baby that's born into this household, and they don't get enough love, and they don't get enough affection, and there's that disconnect with the parents, and they're just like, they're always getting yelled at, and they're just making them seem like they're just never good enough. So as they get older and they start going to school, they start to usually become bullies. These are usually kids that are more so on the bullying side. As they get into love, for example, whatever it is that they saw, they mimic. So if for example, if a young girl, she grew up in a household and there was a lot of domestic violence, and that's just something that subconsciously she doesn't realize, but that's what she is attracted to. She ends up being attracted to men that are usually abusive. And that goes for men as well. If they grew up in a household where they saw maybe their father beat on their mother, or just not even, maybe it wasn't even physical, maybe it was just emotional, and they just constantly was yelling, that's what they grow up to be, and they get with a woman, and that's just what it is that they do, just what they saw growing up is what they mimic. And I think that we don't realize that portion, and we have kids, and kids are brought up in the world, and we love them and we care for them, but we don't think about the other stuff. We don't think about the environment, as far as like, how is my relationship with other people around my kids, because that's how their relationship is going to be with other people. How I treat people is how my kids are going to treat people, because whatever they see me do is what it is that they're going to do to other people. And I think that a lot of times we also don't realize that portion. So I think it's very important that we love kids and we give them as much affection, and we bring them up in the best environment that they can be, because some adults that are brought up in messed up households, and no matter how hard they try, it's just something that's deep in their subconscious, like I previously stated. And some of them end up going places like jail, and even passing away from different things. And it's just the environment, and it's just it's very sad. And sometimes it could just be a never-ending cycle. Like, you start here as a little girl in this messed up environment, and whenever you have kids, because that's the environment you were growing up in, that's what you teach your kids, who teaches their kids, who teaches their kids. So that ends up being just a cycle. So we need more love in the world and more affection, because the kids are the future. That's who we're leaving the world to. So my name is Sydney Bala, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Have a great rest of your night.